Namo Namah. Hello and good afternoon, everyone. It gives us pleasure to welcome you all to this international webinar on ancient Indian grammatical tradition and Indo-European philology, organized by the Department of Sanskrit of Acharya Sukumar Mahavidyalaya, Purbo and Panchakot Mahavidyalaya, Purulia. We have had around 1,000 participants registering for the webinar from various institutions of India and abroad as well. This is one of the reasons why we are streaming through the YouTube live. We thank the educational and cultural station of Ramakrishna Mission Vidya Mandir, Velur, for kindly providing us with this platform. I would first like to invite Dr. Joydev Panda, Joint Convener of this webinar, for Maṅgalācaraṇa. Dr. Joydev Panda.
Namo Namaha. Om Sanno Mitraha Samvarunaha Sanno Bhagatvaryama Sanna Indro Brihaspatihi Sanno Vishnurukramaha Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayo Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmashi Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami Ritang Vadishyami Satyang Vadishyami Tanmamavatu Tadvaktaramavatu Avatu Mam Avatu Vaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namo Namah.
Thank you, Joydev sir, for this beautiful chanting. Now I am requesting Dr. Jayanta Kumar Mukherjee, Principal of Acharya Sukumar Mahavidyalaya, to deliver the inaugural speech. Without his support and encouragement, this webinar could not have been possible. Over to you, Dr. Jayanta Kumar Mukherjee. Sir.
Thank you, Piyali. Good afternoon, everybody. I welcome heartily all the participants, all the distinguished speakers in this international 2-day-long webinar. With your kind permission, I would like to to say a few words in my mother tongue, Bengali. With your kind permission, everyone. Namaskar. নমস্কার। আচার্য সুকুমার সেন মহাবিদ্যালয়ের সংস্কৃত বিভাগের উদ্যোগে এবং পঞ্চকোট মহাবিদ্যালয়ের সহযোগিতায় দুদিনব্যাপী যে আন্তর্জাতিক এবং আন্তর্জালিক সম্মেলনের আয়োজন করা হয়েছে, আমি আয়োজক বন্ধুদের পক্ষ থেকে উপস্থিত সকলকে স্বাগত জানাই। প্রত্যেকে আমাদের অভিনন্দন গ্রহণ করুন। কোভিড-19 প্যান্ডেমিক এর এই অসহনীয় জীবনযাত্রায় দুদিনব্যাপী এই জীবন চর্চার আসুন আমরা সকলে ঋদ্ধ হই। আমাদের আলোচনার বিষয় অ্যানসিয়েন্ট ইন্ডিয়ান গ্রামাটিক্যাল ট্র্যাডিশন এবং তার সঙ্গে ইন্দো ইউরোপিয়ান ফিলোলজি। এই বিষয়ে মনোজ্ঞ আলোচনা আমরা বিশিষ্ট পণ্ডিতজন যারা আজকের বিশেষ বক্তা তাদের কাছ থেকে শুনব। আমি শুধু আলোচ্য বিষয়বস্তু নির্বাচনের প্রেক্ষিতের বিষয়ে দু একটা কথা বলবো। আমরা জানি প্রাচীন ইন্দো এরিয়ান তিনটি ভাষা পালি, সংস্কৃত ও তামিল, এখান থেকেই সমস্ত মডার্ন ইন্ডিয়ান ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজের উদ্ভব ঘটেছে। আর গ্রামার হলো ভাষার স্ট্রাকচারাল কম্পোনেন্ট। সারা পৃথিবী জুড়ে মানবজাতির ইতিহাসের পথ ধরে অজস্র ভাষার উদ্ভব, বিকাশ এবং তার বিনাশও ঘটেছে। ইদানিং প্রায়শই শোনা যাচ্ছে বাংলা ভাষার পিঠ নাকি দেওয়ালে ঠেকে গেছে। আশু সাবধান না হলে বাংলা ভাষাও এন্ডেঞ্জার্ড ভাষাগোষ্ঠীর তালিকা থেকে ক্রমশ এক্সটিংক্ট হওয়ার পথে নাকি এগিয়ে যাচ্ছে। ভাষাকে প্রাণবন্ত করার বা বাঁচিয়ে রাখার অন্য সব উপায় বাদ দিয়ে অন্যতম যে কাজ তা হলো ভাষার স্ট্রাকচারাল রিসার্চ। আর বাংলা শব্দ ভান্ডারের উৎসমুখ হলো প্রাচীন ইন্দো এরিয়ান ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ ও তার গ্রামার অর্থাৎ সংস্কৃত। তাই বর্তমান সময়ের প্রেক্ষিতে বিষয়বস্তুটি নির্বাচন অত্যন্ত জরুরি বলেই আমাদের মনে হয়। আপনাদের প্রত্যেককে আবারও আমাদের পক্ষ থেকে ধন্যবাদ জানাই। পিয়ালি, ধন্যবাদ জানাই সবাইকে। নমস্কার।
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the speech. Now, our first speaker for today is Professor Taraknath Adhikari from the Department of Sanskrit of Rabindra Bharati University. Though he needs no introduction, he is a renowned Vedic scholar of India. Still, I would like to introduce him for those who might not know him. He has 40 years of teaching experience, including 30 years of university teaching. His interest areas are Veda, manuscript, and grammar. 16 PhD scholars obtained PhD degree, and more than 20 scholars obtained their MPhil degree under his supervision. His 20 books have been published till now, and more than 65 research articles in national and international journals. He has visited many countries like Austria, France, Bangladesh, Canada to attend the conference. He has been awarded with Lifetime Achievement Award in 2019. He is the former director of Rabindra Bharati University Distance Education. He is also board member of a number of universities of Bengal. Now he is engaged in translation of Atharva Veda, and two volumes have already been published. Today he will give the keynote lecture. Sir, over to you. Thank you for being here with us.
मुखं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् सदाशिवसमारम्भं शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमम् अस्मत् आचार्यपर्यन्तं वन्दे गुरुपरम्परम् अनादिनिधनं ब्रह्म शब्दतत्त्वं यदक्षरं विवर्तते अर्थभावेन प्रक्रिया यगतो जगतो यतः. Guten Morgen for Vise and good afternoon for Indians. To begin with my problem. So to begin with, I would like to congratulate the organizers of this seminar, of this webinar, International Webinar, Ancient Indian Grammatical Tradition and Indo-European Philology. And I think it is a befitting manner because the Department of Sanskrit, Acharya Sukumar Sen Mahavidyalaya, we know Sukumar Sen himself was a very pioneer in the linguistic studies, particularly Indian linguistics and philology as well. So it is a befitting for the college. And along with another college, that is Panchakot College, I congratulate the authorities, particularly the principal, Dr. Jayanta Kumar Mukherjee of the Acharya Sukumar Sen Mahavidyalaya, and also tomorrow will join Dr. Saptarshi Chakraborty, Panchakot College, and certainly and especially Dr. Herdal Vijay, the University of Leipzig, that is in Germany, whom we have met 1.5 years ago, and we remember the sweet memories in Vancouver in every morning and every evening. And obviously tomorrow we'll join Professor Sudeshna Bhattacharya of Guwahati University, she is also a Vyakaran specialist, and Professor Parvati Chakraborty, Rabindra Bharati University, she will join us. She is also a specialist in Indian grammar. And I also congratulate Piyali Biswas and Dr. Joydev Panda, those who are the conveners of this seminar and this webinar. In this pandemic situation, you know, it is very difficult to organize physical seminars. So we have to go through all these webinars. We cannot see others, but without breaking the barriers of East and West, we have today met to discuss about Indian grammatical tradition. At the same time, the contribution of the European scholars for studying Indian grammar and Indo-European comparative philology. As a keynote speaker, I would not go into the penetrating matters. That will be done by those who are expert in this area. I will better only give the historical tradition, the long Indian tradition of Indian grammatical studies. At the same time, the contribution of the Europeans and the Americans sometimes to the Sanskrit grammar as well, to enrich it, to analyze it, and to prepare even a platform for comparative philology. Thank you, guest. First of all, I think one line of Bhartrihari, who said, the philosopher of Shabda, the philosopher of word, he said, I quote, Tasmat ya sabda sanskara sa siddhi paramatmanaha tasya pravritti tatta gyam tat brahmamritam asmi. That means that one, he knows the grammatical niceties, and he uh, mm, he enjoys the Brahmamrita. To begin with the grammatical system, I would quote from a very strong American grammatical and Vedic scholar, that is W.D. Whitney, who quote in one of his book, The Study of Hindu Grammar. Let me quote just a line. The grammar remains merely, if not altogether, the most admirable product of the scientific in India, ranking with the best products of that spirit that world has seen, unquote. It means that he has cleared two things. One thing, the grammar remains the admirable product, and at the second thing, it has been produced in the most scientific spirit. So he has mentioned, and we know that he was, though he was a Vedic scholar, he has also wrote a number of books in grammar, and we know that the Indian grammatical tradition is very old. How old? We try to find out its trace historically, to find out its trace. But at the same time, in the introduction, I will tell you that uh, mm, though grammar was the most adorable production of India, but it was never a popular subject in India. Never popular subject, because as we have seen in records that once when Kashika Britti was written by Jayaditya Bhamana on the first commentary on Panini, he writes, sometimes he comments that Kashtang Vyakaranam, That means grammar is very tough thing. Even he comments, Daruna Odhapaka. That means the professors dangerous who are the grammar professors. And also the Ghora Odhapaka. Uh, the, the teachers of the grammars are not very smiling, the enjoyable teachers as well, like literature. And in Jayanta Bhatta's Nayamanjari, he has quoted one thing. He has quoted that Vyakarono Maranandaka Vyadi. That means the Vyakarono is so tough that it may kill you. It may kill you. And Patanjali in his Mahabhashya comments that the to popularize grammar, we distribute blankets, warm blankets, so that the students come to read Vyakaran. So the young scholars who are with me, they should, the listeners who are listening these things, they should know that not only in present time, the students are frightened to see the grammatical, Sanskrit grammatical studies, but in the ancient time too, it was also a very fearful study for the Indians. Friends, if you say it was it is the only characteristic of the Indians, no, not at all. It was not at all in India, but even in Europe, grammar was taken as a necessary evil. How? Monier Williams, in his one of his book, Indian Wisdom, Monier Williams quotes, says, I quote, Europeans are apt book on a grammar of any kind of necessary evil. Necessary evil. Grammar is a necessary evil, only to be tolerated because indispensable for the attainment of a desired, indispensable for the attainment of a desired end and beyond. Unquote. I cannot. Sometimes I am going out, flashing out. I don't know. This is the problem of my camera. Okay, unquote. So the Europeans also think the grammar is one kind of a necessary evil for the students, but they have to study it because for the understanding of the language. Let's come to our Bengali language. And in Bengali language, to portray a grammarian, Rabindra Tagore, in his Puroshkar Kavita, paints a very savvy character, a picture of a grammarian. What he says, let me quote just one line. Ashe guti guti boiya koron, dhuli bhara duti loiya choron, চিহ্নিত করি রাজ আস্তরণ পবিত্র পঙ্গে পুরস্কার কবিতা. So we can say the grammar was never looked, nowhere looked, in no time it was looked as very interesting, enjoyable to the students. But friends, you will know that grammar is, though it is like Narikel of Alsamito, sometimes it has been compared with ikshu ken. And like if you can squeeze the ikshu ken, you can get the sweet juice of it. Grammar is like that. If you can squeeze, if you have power, if you have intellect, if you have the worth to squeeze the ikku, the grammar ikshu, the grammar sugarcane, then you can enjoy the sweet juice of it. This is my opinion. Next, about grammar and Vyakarono. That is, are they one and same? I think it may not be the same from Indian point of view. In Indian point of view, the English grammar is and Indian grammar are two different aspects. And they have similarities, but they are not one and same. In Sanskrit grammar focuses on analyzing the word and finding out its correctness. This is normally the character of Sanskrit grammar. Sadhutto Gyano Vishaya Soisha Vyakarana Smriti Bhakkapadiyo, chapter 1. Sadhutto Vyakarana. Even Patanjali Mahabharsha also speaks in the same line. Sanskrit grammar highlights on shabdo mainly the word. Even when Panini makes the rule of a shabdo, he utters swang rupang sabdasya asabda sangha. That the morphology of a word is a word. It is when it does not represent a morphology, it is not a word. It is maybe the meaning of the word. It is different. So it is highlights on shabdo, that is the morphology of shabdo. So it is called the shabdar or sometimes ortho. So it is a shabdo tattva, shabdo sastra, and so sometimes it touches semantics and sometimes syntax, and rarely figure of speech. For India, the other treatises like Siksha, Nirukta, Chando, rhetorics are composed as separate aspects, for separate aspects other than grammar, where there are 6 Vedangas, and there are other 4 Vedangas for delineating other things. Kalijivan Deva Sarma, who has written a very good book on grammatical, the history of grammar, he wrote, গ্রামারকে শব্দশাস্ত্র বলা যাইতে পারে সংস্কৃত ব্যাকরণ শুধু পদের আকার লইয়া। শব্দশাস্ত্রের ইতিহাস পৃষ্ঠা 7। He goes on saying that modern linguistics that deal with semantics, phonology, morphology, orthography, chestomathy, even sometimes rhetorics, and among them grammatical scholars deal mainly on morphology and sometimes semantics and syntax. And I think Parvati and Sudeshna are there. They will speak on semantics and syntax later on. Yes, friends, we know in the Vedic language we do have 6 Vedangas, but the first grammatical treatise in India, if we see, it was Panini's full-fledged Ashtadhyayi grammar, and this was the first available grammar in India. Before it may be 5th century or more or less 5th century or 4th century BC. This was the first grammar, and this Henry Louis Henry Gray remarks that there are 2 types of grammar. One, study of the language. It may be either synchronic and diachronic. Synchronic grammar deals with the language of a given period of its development. Diachronic grammar traces the evolution of a language through the history. That what we actually do in Panini's grammar, that is synchronic. It is a descriptive grammar. It is a synchronic structural grammar which deals with a single language and the only language no other language is treated in that grammar in a given time. And what we do in our classes, if I say my students, আমি আমার ছাত্রছাত্রীদের জন্য বলছি, তোমরা কলেজে যেগুলো ভাষাতত্ত্ব হিসেবে লিঙ্গুইস্টিক্স হিসেবে পড়ো, সেইগুলো প্র্যাকটিক্যালি হচ্ছে ডায়াক্রনিক বা থার্ড টাইপ আমরা যেটাকে বলছি যে philological, the comparative philology, about which Professor Vise will make you clear what is the philology, comparative philology, and how it developed. Sanskrit grammar preferred the synchronic part normally, and the structure they have preferred to prepare to understand the sadhu shabda, and they have particularly said that what are the asadhu shabdas, the incorrect words, aposhabdas are to be identified. At the same time, the right words are to be identified, and this is the duty of Indian grammatical heads. Even when they cannot justify a sadhu word, when they cannot justify the sadhu shabda, then they use the other various sutras like Prishodra, Twat, Nipatanat, Siddham, like that. Kashika has mentioned all these things, and sometimes where the lingo, bachana, bhattayas are there, they say all these are Nipatano Siddha. Nipatone amader mene nite hobe. But here I will remind you that the Mimamsakas are different. The Kumarila Bhatta in his Tantra Vartik, he has said the words used by Aryans, there is no scope of aposhabda, there is no scope of mlecha shabda. I quote one line from his Tantra Vartik: Arjascha mlecha bhasabhya kalpayanta swakang padam padantarapekshopetam kalpayanti kadachana. That means the Aryans have inherited words from the Mlechas, and they has been Aryanized. Even this can be seen in the Savasya, that is the first commentary on the first commentary on Mimamsa. It has been said that we have inherited, and they could not be told that they are aposhabda. They are, he has mentioned, they may be the local variations of local variations. Suppose when Patanjali says the Gavo, Gota, Guni, these are the aposhabda of go, then Mimamsaka refuted them, taking them as their as well as Adhu Shabda. It is the local variants of the go Shabda, because the bacho, the meaning of the go is fairly understood by the people and when it is said. Next, now coming to the historicity of the grammatical tradition of India. There is a maxim we know. The maxim is Anantaparam Kilo Sabda Sastra. It is known to all my students. I am proud that the two of my direct students, Piyali Biswas and Joydev, Dr. Joydev Panda, both are my direct students of my university. They are doing this webinar, today international webinar on grammar. So I am proud of it. They know all these things. The Anantaparam Kilo Sabda Sastram. The word is endless. We cannot count it. So can we say when the grammar, the study of grammar started in India? I have tried to search out as a practical purpose. From where could be the starting point of studying language and grammar in India? Yes, there are six Vedangas, six branches, six Vedangas for the understanding of the Vedas, and grammar Vyakarana is one of the Vedangas. But at the same time, we should we should know, we should be careful that there is no complete grammatical text so far on Vedic language. But did the Vedic people know grammar or not? That was my searching point. I have seen, yes, we cannot find the grammatical treatise, though we can see in the Samhitas they have thought, basic thoughts. They have basic thoughts on shabda. They have basic thoughts on speech. In the Rig Veda, we know in the Ushabamiya Sutta the very famous line, Chatvari Parimitani Vak. And there are four divisions of words, out of which the fourth one is spoken by the human beings. Turiyang Vacha Manusha Vadanti. And in the not only in the Rig Veda, but also in the Yajur Vedas, that is Kathaka Shakha, that is Maitrayani Shakha, they also refer to the division of words. One part of that is one part of grammatical study. I quote one line in Maitrayani Samhita. I quote from that. Sha Bak Chaturdha Vyabhavat Eshu Lokeshu Trini Turiyani Poshushu Turiyam. Poshu means here the human beings and animal, human beings. And actually, in the later Vedic period, it was divided into two parts, Doibak and Manushibak. And grammatical terms particularly have been explicitly found for the first time in Gopatha Brahmana, chapter 1. There is a passage where elaborating about the structure of the sound Om. They have engaged in grammatical way. I quote line, very simple lines. Omkarang Prichama. We are asking about Omkar. And then Prichama. Ko dhatu. You here, you will understand the grammatical words, paribhashas, you will see. Ko dhatu. King Pratipadikam. King Namakyatyam. King Lingam. King Vachanam. Ka Bhakti. Ka Pratyaya. Ka Swara. Ka Upasarga. Ka Nipata. King Boi Vyakaranam. Ko Vikara. Koti Matra. Koti Varna. Koti Akshara. Koti Pada. Ka Sanjoga, etc. etc. If you see this very passage, you will see that the grammarian has used particular these terminologies when they analyze the grammar. So it is supposed that during the Brahmana period, the grammatical studies in India started very firm ground, even though, again I speak, we do not have any special grammatical text on particularly Vedic language till Panini comes. Next. Tradition refers to schools of grammar in India. One school is Oindra and the other school is Maheshwara. Katantra belongs to the Oindra school and Panini belongs to the Maheshwara school. Oindra school, about the Oindra school, we get a reference in Riktantra Vyakarana. That is, Riktantra is a Shamanic treatise on Phonology, it refers, I quote, about Indra Vyakaran. Brahma Brihaspataye Prabhacha Brihaspatir Indraya Indra Bharadvajayo Bharadvaja Rishibhya Rishayo Brahmanebhya. So it was started from Brihaspati, but it was Vakritam. It was by multiplicated Vakritam by Indra. So this grammar is known as Indra Vyakaran. And about the Maheshwara Vyakaran, we also get from the tradition the same thing in Samudravat Vyakaranam Maheshware Tadardham Kumbhodharanam Brihaspatau Tat Bhaga Bhagascha Gatam Purandare Ushagrabindur Patitam hi Panino. Simple meaning is simple. Orthat Samudravat Vyakaranam Maheshwara. The tradition of Maheshwara grammar is so huge like an ocean. And Brihaspati picked out just a jar water, jar water, fill with water, and from its half of it got by Indra, and
স্যার প্লিজ আপনি আনমিউট করুন আপনি ইউ আর নট অডিবল স্যার স্যার ইউ আর নট অডিবল ইয়েস একটু আনমিউট করুন মিউট হয়ে গেছে বোধহয় ভিডিওটা নিচে ওই যে মিউট স্টপ এরকম বটন গুলো আছে না তো মিউট হয়ে গেছে ওটা আনমিউটে ক্লিক করতে হবে ওহো কিছু ফোনও করা যাচ্ছে না এখন। Sir, you're not audible. Please unmute the mic. Sir, please unmute the mic. You're not audible. I think mute. You have muted. Yes, sir.
Line what Max Muller wrote about the importance of Sanskrit in the field of Indo-European philological studies. Let me quote one line. The result of science of language, he wrote, which without the aid of Sanskrit would never have been obtained from form an essential element for Indo-European language. It was the torch of comparative philology, Max Muller. Yes, to complete it, let me, this is the importance of Sanskrit. And finally, I say that the discovery of Sanskrit language to the West has laid the foundation of comparative philology as well as descriptive linguistics, and Panini's grammar has been recognized as the best specimen for descriptive linguistics in the West, from which linguistic got its new venues from structural linguistics, from TGG of Chomsky's transformational generative grammar, the frog type, the neo-grammarians, everything has been fountained from the introduction of grammar and Vedic language in the Europe. And I will finish with the Faden's book, Faden's line on Panini's grammar. What he wrote, very interestingly, he wrote, Goldstucker has admirably attacked Bothling, but for Bothling, we forget Goldstucker. And Whitney admirably attacked Panini, but for Panini, we forget Whitney. I adore Bothling because he reveals us the spirit of Panini. I adore Panini because he reveals to us the spirit of India. I adore India because it reveals us the spirit, the spirit. Thank you, all the listeners. I'm sorry for the operational problems. Thank you very much for your kind patience and listening. Thank you. Hello.
Thank you so much, sir, for your invaluable lecture. I apologize for the inconvenience caused due to some technical issues. Now, I want to remind the audience that we will be running a question answer session at the end of the lecture session. So, if you have any question, you can write that in the chat box. So, our next speaker for today is Professor Harold Weise, professor at University of Leipzig, Germany. He is an economist with a keen interest in Indology. He has been applying microeconomics to pre-modern India, in particular to Arthashastra and Dharmashastra. Besides, he finds Sanskrit as an Indo-European language fascinating. He has been working on a manual that makes learning Sanskrit easier by taking the Indo-European perspective. He has published many books and research articles in international reputed journals. He has been teaching at the University of Leipzig, Germany since 1994. He has visited many universities like the University of California, Berkeley, University of Texas, Austin as a visiting scholar, and has visited ENS, Paris, Dresden International University, Germany, ESC, Paris, and many others as a visiting professor. He also has been to many countries for seminar like India, Canada, Paris, etc. Today he will be speaking on Sanskrit as an Indo-European language. Over to Professor Weise. Thank you for being here.
Now come India. Come India.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Yushmabhyam sarvebhyah sudinam. Mama nama Harald Weise. Aham Germany deshe Leipzig nagare arthashastram patayami. Kintu adya Sanskrita bhashayam vadami. Well, that's all the Sanskrit I have, I'm afraid. I like to take up a few remarks that Professor Adhikari just made. He mentioned that grammar is a fearful study and a necessary evil. And well, that may be true, but the thrust of my talk is that this fearful grammar may be made a bit more easier by taking the Indo-European perspective. Professor Adhikari also mentioned that the discovery of Sanskrit by the Europeans made Indo-European studies possible, so that it was a torch, as was said by, I think you mentioned Müller. And that is actually a great puzzle, because you see, the Europeans had Latin, they had Greek, some of them might have known Gothic, German language. So why did they not invent Indo-European studies before that? That is really a puzzle, because Indo-European studies is not rocket science. But it was a fact that it was only after the Europeans came into contact with Sanskrit that this science of Indo-European studies was developed. And you quoted from William Jones and Schlegel. Now I would like to share some slides with you, because then you can see the slides and not my face. So share screen, I hope that should work. So can you see the slides? I hope you can. No, you cannot.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not
Not yet. Why is that? We tried it a few days ago or yesterday even. So it should work. So share screen. Oh.
Yes, now it shows, but very, yeah. Now it's visible. Now it's visible.
Do you see it?
Yeah.
Do you see
visible.
the slide? Oh, okay, there it is. Thank you very much. Great.
Yeah, great.
Sorry for the for this problem. Now, what I want to do is I want to present a very personal and somewhat Leipzig biased view. Well, this is not only because I am a resident of Leipzig, being at the Department of Economics, but also because there was the Leipzig School of Indo-European Studies, which was very important for Indo-European studies. And so I will walk you through a few examples of what the Indo-European perspective can do to the understanding and also to the learning of Sanskrit. Now, we already mentioned the necessary evil of grammar. There is a textbook by Goldman that some of you might know. Can you see it? Oh, there's some, well, doesn't matter. There's the textbook. There's this textbook by Goldman, and in this book he mentions Sandhi and the other terrors of Sanskrit. So I think that taking the Indo-European perspective actually takes some of the terrors out of Sanskrit. Of course, Sanskrit is a sweet language. It's madhura for different people for different reasons. But for me, in particular, Sanskrit is beautiful because it is regular. And some of these regularities have been pointed out by Panini, as we have just heard. And as we have just learned also, Panini took a synchronic perspective. And I'm now more talking about the diachronic perspective. But while Panini took the synchronic perspective, he understood a lot of the structure that Indo-European studies discovered, more than 2,000 years later. If you think about the Indo-European language, it is best to think about it in terms of a language tree. So there is this mother tongue, this Indo-European language that we postulate. There is not a single manuscript in that language. There is not a single epigraphical record, nothing at all. But this language is postulated from the oldest stages of the languages that we know, like Gothic from Germanic languages, Latin, of course, Old Irish, Greek, Old Church, Slavic, and then, of course, Vedic, with the Rig Veda, and then also classical Sanskrit. And of course, we might add that, of course, this is an ongoing process, so languages keep on branching out, and following Sanskrit, you have Hindi and, of course, Bengal, as was mentioned by Professor Mukherjee and Professor Adhikari. Now, as I said, I want to focus on the Leipzig School of Indo-European Studies. And while one of the founder of Indo-European Studies was Bob, mentioned by Professor Adhikari, there were later researchers like Schleicher and Pott who were actually reconstructing this Indo-European language. Bob just established that that these languages are cognate, that the similarities that William Jones mentioned are not chance similarities, but Schleicher and Pott went on a step further and actually reconstructed the Indo-European language. And August Schleicher, who was professor in Prague and in Jena is a town not far from Leipzig, he was the first to use an asterisk to indicate Indo-European reconstructed forms. And he was also the first to use this graphical device of language trees. I've given here the title of Schleicher's main work. There you see it's about a comparative grammar of the Indo-European languages, and in particular, well, you see the list there. This list got longer and longer as time went on. And Schleicher was very optimistic with respect to his reconstructions. He even composed an Indo-European fable. And I once had a professor who thought that with his knowledge of Indo-European, if he would be able to enter a time machine and be kind of displace some, I don't know, 6,000 years backwards then, and if he met an Indo-European tribe, he would be able more or less to converse with those people. So one can be more or less optimistic on how realistic the reconstructions are. Now, one of Schleicher's pupil is or was August Leskin. He was a Slavicist, and he was sort of the founding father of the Leipzig school. They are also called neo-grammarians, or in German, Junggrammatiker. And another famous member was Karl Brugmann. He was, for most of his life, he was a professor at Leipzig University, and he and other colleagues made Leipzig the worldwide center of Indo-European studies from around 1819 to 1920. What distinguished Brugmann from his teacher, Georg Curtius, and from Friedrich Pott from Halle, which is also a town nearby, was the Ausnahmslosigkeit der Lautgesetze. That's what you read on the bottom of the slide. And it means that sound laws are valid without exception. You see, Curtius and others thought that sound laws sometimes hold and sometimes they don't hold. And Brugmann and his colleagues were more strict. They said, no, they have to hold everywhere. Unless, of course, you have an analogy, unless, of course, you see that different dialects or different languages evolve. But within a language group, they just hold. And this is a rather strict way of looking at things, but it also provides some discipline. The discipline of not saying, oh, sometimes it holds, sometimes it doesn't hold, but just to look for sound laws. And if you cannot find them, then maybe the reconstruction that you have postulated, or the link between two different words in two different languages, are just chance events. Or if that is not the case, then you may have to look closer, and you may have to look closer and look at finer laws. For example, there was a Dutchman. He was a librarian in Halle. He also belonged to the Leipzig school. He joined the researchers just in his free time, and he found out that one problem that Grimm had with sound laws in German could be solved by looking at the accent in Vedic texts, in Vedic words. And he found that the development that you see in German and English depended on whether the accent was before or after, and the Vedic accent, so whether the Vedic accent was before or after the consonant in question. So sometimes you just need to look closer. Now, let us go into more of the details. So I apologize for that, of course, because Professor Adhikari gave us a nice overview, and now I'm getting technical and going into the details. And Popp and Curtius, I already mentioned these two philologists, they thought that the Indo-European language just knew three short vowels, namely A, I, and U. And just these three short vowels are found in Sanskrit. So, of course, when the Europeans developed Sanskrit, they were amazed at the antiquity of that language. And even nowadays, we know that Sanskrit is pretty close to the Indo-European language. But Sanskrit is not the mother tongue of Indo-Iranian, of Celtic languages, of German languages. It is not. And this question, whether it is or not, became important with respect to these vowel questions. Pott and Curtius thought that you have just short A in the Indo-European language, and the young grammarians contradicted. They said, and that is the common view nowadays, they thought that in Indo-European you had three short vowels A, E, and O, and they collapsed into Indo-Iranian A. In contrast, in Old Greek, you still see these Indo-European vowels A, E, and O, as they are postulated for Indo-European. Now, what was the argument of the young grammarians? Well, they said, if Sanskrit were to reflect the Indo-European vowel system, then we should have sound laws that tell us under which conditions this Indo-European A would have split up in Greek into A, E, or O. And then they said, well, but these sound laws cannot be found. And so they concluded it must be the other way around. It must be that Indo-European A, E, and O turn into Old Indian, just Sanskrit, A. And that's the state of affairs, the state of knowledge nowadays. Now, most of you know, of course, that in Sanskrit you also have E and O, but E and O in Sanskrit are long vowels. They are not short vowels. And these E and O in Sanskrit, they go back to Indo-European diphthongs. So if you have a diphthong in Indo-European language like EI, OI, or AI, then the A, E, and O would turn into A, so you would have just AI, but that would be transformed into E, and that's this E with this funny hat that I've written on top. I've written this funny hat on top because I use that for most of the time, at least. I use that for the Sanskrit E to remind me and to remind you that this E is long and that it has developed most of the time from an Indo-European diphthong. And this E you see then before a consonant. For example, in the word leader, the ne tr. There you have the consonant T, and before the consonant T, this Indo-European AE would turn into AE and then into E. But before a vowel, you would see the diphthong more clearly, as in Nayati. And just to use quite a different example, you have from Muni, the sage, you have the, I think, genitive or ablative, Munehe. So the Visarga is a consonant. So you have the E. I should have put a hat on top of the E. And then in the dative, Munaye, E is a vowel, so you have AY before the vowel. Now in Sanskrit, you also have long diphthongs, from long AE, long E plus E, long O plus E, and that would turn into the diphthong AE. Normally it's just written AE, not with a hat on top. But here again, I put the hat on top to remind me that it is a long A. It goes back to a long Indo-European A. And that is important because before a vowel, you just see this long A. Just on the bottom of the slide, you see tasmai, to him. And then if a vowel follows, like in tasma yadadat, he gave to that person, there you see the clear reflection of the long diphthong. The clear reflection of the long diphthong. Yeah. And just on the very top of the slide, of course, you have the Indo-European E, which would remain like the E before a consonant, but would turn into the half vowel Y before a consonant. And we will see examples of that also. Now what I have explained here for E also holds for U. So if you have the diphthong A, U, or E plus U, that would turn into Sanskrit O. So I would write an O with a hat on top. Now, Professor Adhikari also already mentioned that Panini took synchronic point of view. That is true. But while he did that, he very much understood this concept of what we nowadays call zero grade, full grade or normal grade, and lengthened grade. For Panini, the zero grade would be svara, the normal grade would be guna, and the lengthened grade vriddhi. Now look at the example that you have here. Bud. Bud is the root, is in zero grade, and you also see that in Buddha, the enlightened one. The full grade would be bodhati. So bodhati would go back to eu, and eu would turn into au, and au would then turn into o before the consonant. Or then finally the lengthened grade, Bauddha. That's a Buddhist. That's the lengthened grade. So it goes back. Well, I don't know. It probably doesn't go back to Indo-European, but maybe it was developed within Sanskrit. Now, this vowel gradation that Panini already knew about can be explained in the following manner. Start from the E that I've highlighted here on the slide. That's an Indo-European E. And this Indo-European E would then, in a quantitative fashion be lost So we go downwards. So the A would just be lost. And in Sanskrit terms, you would have an A, which would then be lost. But you may also have the lengthening. So that's upwards, where you have this A with a bar on top. It just means a long vowel A. And still within Indo-European, you have a qualitative uplaut. Uplaut is another word for vowel gradation. It's actually a German word. And this qualitative uplaut means that A turns into O, both short vowels. And you then may have a quantitative variant of this O and the long O. What Panini understood of this diagram was the quantitative uplaut. He could not understand the qualitative one because in Sanskrit you just have short A and long A, where in the Indo-European language you have short E and short O, and then the corresponding long vowels. Let me now turn to the question of roots. Indo-European roots begin and end in a consonant. They have as a root vowel the A, the Indo-European A. There is no hat on it. And this Indo-European A may be followed or even preceded by a half vowel or by one of those R, L, and M, they're called resonants. So, and now if you have this in mind, then many roots in Indo-European times had the structure consonant, A consonant. That's in the table, the first entry there. Consonant, A consonant, and the second entry in the first column is consonant AE, so the diphthong consonant. Then EU, we might look at ER, EN, EM. So that's the first column. So the Indo-European root in full grade with the E, with the Indo-European E. Now, in Sanskrit dictionaries, we are used to see the zero grade, the svara. So you would have just the zero grade means that the A, the Indo-European A is lost, or the Sanskrit A is lost. But sometimes that doesn't work. So if you have the root pat, you cannot just do away with the A, so you would see pat in Monier-Williams and other dictionaries. But at least there's the example of an aorist, a-pa-ptat. You see, A is an augment, Pa is a reduplicated syllable, and the root in zero grade is just this PT, apa, tat. Yeah, so that's at least one example. Then turning to the second row with the diphthong with E. So in European, we have C, AE, C, and then the zero grade of that would be without the A. So you have just consonant, E consonant, and then we have this example sheep, where there is a consonant cluster. So it's a CC and the I, the E, and then the final consonant P. And the example is the PPP, the past participle shipta. And then from yuj, you get yukta. From srp, you get srpta. Now, let's turn to this example of srpta. So the fourth row in this matrix here. So if you have C, E, R, C in Indo-European times and then the zero grade, you get just C, the consonant, and then the R with this circle below. And the R with this circle below means that it is a vocalic R, that is a syllabic R. So that means that this R is a vowel. So it could be pronounced something like, like in Sanskrit, srp, 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 not sap, not seep, but srp. Yeah, and now turning to the 5th and 6th row, we have to look at the cases with N and M, and that is actually quite interesting from an Indo-European point of view. So we are talking about examples like Han, to kill, and the PPP Hatta, or Gam and the PPP Gatta. I hope you still, do you still see? Yeah, okay, there it is again. You still see the slides, very good. Now, learners often are told that if you want to understand Gatta, you take Gam and cross out the M. Or if you want to understand Hatta or Natta, you just cross out the M or the N. But from an Indo-European point of view, that is a bad explanation. Now, before I can explain that, I need to turn to a sound law which involves the syllabic N. This syllabic N or syllabic M is not something unusual. For example, in the English language, there is the word bottom, bottom. It is not bottom, it is bottom. Or for some of those like Professor Adhikari who know German, there is the word in German Besen. It means a broom. But it is spelled B-E-S-E-N. But nobody would pronounce it as Besen. It is Besen, like bottom, bottom. So even you don't need the second O in bottom. Now, Bruckmann already postulated syllabic N and M in the Indo-European language. And he said this syllabic N would turn into A before a consonant, both in Sanskrit and also actually in Greek. In Latin, you would have EN typically, and in German, you have UN, or in English, an. Yeah? And you see that with this example that I've given here, incredible, unbelievable, ashraddheya. Yeah, this in, un, and a, they are all related, and they go back to syllabic N in Indo-European, to this language that was spoken 6,000, about 6,000 years ago. In order to convince you, I've brought a few more examples. Look at the Latin-based foreign word ineffective or imperfect. That is they are Latin-based. If they are Greek-based, then you have the atheist who doesn't believe in God, or before a vowel you have anarchy. And actually this a and an before a consonant or before a vowel respectively, that you also see in Sanskrit. You have agatika or aputra without sun, but before a vowel you have anta without and, and so on. So I hope to have convinced you that this sound law, according to which syllabic N became the vowel A between consonants in Sanskrit. Here's another example, the word for 100. It was Kim Tom in Indo-European times, and it is Shatam in Sanskrit. And here, please look at the second sound here, the syllabic M turned into A in Sanskrit. So, and now let me return to Han and Gam. Han and Gam. If we turn to Han, that is the second to last row, then the best way to understand Hatha is not to say, just cross out the N. No, the best way is to say, look at the zero grade of Han. That means you have to do away with the A, which was an Indo-European E. Then you have the N between two consonants, and this N between two consonants develops into the vowel A. And similarly with Gam. So Gata is best understood as Gm-ta, Gm-ta. And this syllabic M evolved into A, Gata. And this explanation has the advantage that in Hatha and Gata, you use the zero grade. Whereas if you take this other explanation, you would take the full grade Han, but just cross away the N. And that's a rule that you would not apply. The rule would be zero grade of the root plus ta. Let's look at some other examples. For example, we have the root vap, which means to sow. But of that you would need the zero grade. So you would need to do away with the A. And then the V, which is just a half vowel, needs to evolve into the corresponding vowel. You see U and V on the one hand, and E and Y on the other hand are closely related. One just shows up between consonants and the others before vowels. Now you may say, but there are contradictions to this general rule, that the PPP is formed by zero grade root plus ta. Yeah, for example, labda is a contradiction. The A is still there, so we have the full grade here. That is true. We have the full grade. I guess that is because to pronounce it like lubda would be just too difficult or too unusual. And so the form labda would come about. Or you have the PPP of pat, patita, and pat is also clearly the full grade, and the E is even placed there on top. It is not a set root pat, but it is still there, presumably to just make the structure simpler. Patita, labda. Now, this vowel gradation that we have seen in Sanskrit, and that is very important in Sanskrit, is still present in English, but it is not very clear and it is not very transparent. So, but you have the strong verbs sing, sang, sung. And this is actually a reflection of vowel gradation. So sing is the full grade, sang is the O grade, from qualitative, upload, and sang is the zero grade. You have this un as in unbelievable. But this is just to remind you that in other languages we also have vowel gradation. But for Sanskrit, vowel gradation is much more important. Without a vowel gradation, you cannot understand Sanskrit. Now here I have brought you a slide, the next one. That looks a bit forbearing and complicated, and I have to admit that it is. So on the left-hand side, you see Indo-European consonants as we reconstruct them. So there is this k, and then there is k and kw, and this k as in kim tom and shatam develops into the palatal s in Sanskrit, whereas the other vela sounds developed into k and ch, depending on the vowel, depending on the Indo-European vowel that follows. And you see something similar for voiced consonants, gy, g, and gw. Now, of course, you cannot remember all this for the time being, but I just want to show the importance of this with the following slide. In particular, look at the bottom of the slide. There you see chakara. That is the reduplicated perfect in Sanskrit, chakara. And it works by reduplication, and the way we reconstruct it in Indo-European is that we say it is ke, ko, a. Now you have a k in Indo-European before the e and before the o. Now, according to secondary palatalization, the k turns into cha before the e, but remains a k before the dark vowel o, chakara. And this you can also see as an indication that vowels that we do not see nowadays in Sanskrit, chakara, it's just short a and long a, that since we have different vowels in Sanskrit, namely e and o, that they have some influence on Sanskrit nevertheless. So we have chakara and kekora. And this you can also take as another indication that the young Grammatiker were right. Another example is sargaha. It is from the Sanskrit root srj. Now it is srj from srg et in Indo-European, and you see the y is followed by an e, so it's srj, but the y before the o remains a g, remains a vela. So we have srjati and sargaha, and this difference again is important for the vowel controversy in Leipzig. Now I have a bit of time to show you my most favorite etymology. It is quite breathtaking, I think. It is the PPP Uda. And this is the PPP from Bharati. And of course, all that Sanskrit learners all over the world are told is that this is irregular. But in fact, it is not irregular. Now, the the root Bharati goes back to Indo-European V-E-G-H, so an aspirated palatal vela. And then you have the to. That is the marker for past participle in the Indo-European language, and this to would turn into ta in Sanskrit. Now, of course, the e cannot remain because we have the zero grade. And then, rather than the v, before a consonant, we need the corresponding vowel. I told you that v and u and y and e are half vowels. And then, then you get this primary palatalization, as we have seen in the diagram just before. So you have uj, ta, and then you get something which is called an aspiration shift. And this aspiration shift you also see in the word Buddha. Buddha. It's from Buddha together with ta that evolves into Buddha. And the same aspiration shift you see here. And then before a voiced consonant, the J turns into a voiced sibilant, z. So you get something like uzda. And then apparently you have something like the Rookie rule. It just means that the sibilants S and also the voiced one, that they become cerebral after E and U and R and K. So deveshu, that's a bad example. Or there are many examples for Rookie. And then from this cerebral S, cerebral Z, you get a cerebral D. So you have forward cerebral assimilation, and then this cerebral Z actually drops after making the U long. And then you get U, da. Now you may think that I invoked many rules that seem haphazard, but they are actually not. There are lots, these very rules are applied in many, many different words. And on my website, you can see a manuscript where you can see that. Here I just mentioned the word lida, from lich to lick, which proceeds along the very same way. Now I need to fast forward. Maybe I can just tell you a little bit about laryngeals. Laryngeals were sounds that a Swiss guy, de Saussure, discovered, and he discovered them by looking at the Sanskrit verbal system. I do not want to explain that to you now, but these laryngeals are nowadays accepted as sounds that existed in the Indo-European language. And these laryngeals are reflected by this letter capital H, and between consonants, this H turned into E, and after a vowel, E, U, and so on, this laryngeal made this E, U, and so on long. And now let's look at a few examples. There is the root boo. No, I try again. Boo, to be, and it is a laryngeal root in Indo-European terms. So the full grade is BH, the aspirated B, E, U, H. Then for the PPP, the E drops, and then the laryngeal makes the U long, and then you have bhuta. In the infinitive, which is formed regularly with tum in Sanskrit. And from the full grade, you see the Indo-European reconstruction below. And then the V, the U has to turn into a V, and the laryngeal between consonant terms into E. So we have bhavitum, which is very regular, expected infinitive, in contrast to very regular expected PPP, bhuta. Another example is from the root jan, but I don't want to go into that. I just want to finish my talk by saying that Sanskrit is difficult. Learning Sanskrit is not a necessary evil, but Panini's vowel gradation and the Indo-European perspective bring out the beauty of Sanskrit more clearly and make Sanskrit less difficult to learn, for me at least. Dhanyavadaha.
Danke schön. Thanks a lot. Danke schön. Do you hear?
Gerne. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for your lecture.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, sir, for your invaluable lecture. Now, I want to pick up some questions from the chat box for the speakers. This question is for Professor Taraknath Adhikari, sir. If you can say something on Barry. Sujoy Pal has asked if you can say something on Barry.
Barry's book is as well as not available. He's a pre-Paninian grammarian, and tradition says he is the maternal uncle of Panini. We cannot be sure about these things, but it is the tradition says. And Barry prepared in the particularly in the syntax, particularly in the verbs, particularly in the roots, what Vise was speaking about. But Barry Samuchaya, in the name of Barry, a few texts are available, and I think if more researches are done, we can get a few treatises on Barry. It has been Samuchaya. There is a collection, collection of Barry is available in some libraries, and in probably Leipzig you can get it. Any more question?
Well, yes, another question, sir, from Hitoishi Singh. Is asking that, sir, can you suggest some specific references from old Vedic and post-Vedic Sanskrit scriptures that covers traditional Indian textiles, both embroideries and weaving? Embroideries and weaving.
Question to whom?
This is for you, I guess.
You repeat the question. You repeat the question, please.
Can you suggest some specific references from old Vedic and post-Vedic Sanskrit scriptures that covers traditional Indian textiles?
Old Vedic scriptures. Old Vedic scriptures, that means the Sanskrit. You cannot say Sanskrit. In the Indo-European term, we say old OIA, Old Indo-Aryan, and the Middle Indo-Aryan and New Indo-Aryan. There are three stages. In Aryan languages, there are three stages. Old Indo-Aryan, that is the structure of Vedic, mainly Vedic language, and also the some Sanskrit languages too. For Vedic languages, there are affinities. With Sanskrit languages, but there are differences are enough. Suppose you say in classical language, normally we do not get any stress that is on word that is in action. Action is very important for Vedic language. What is not available in the classical, and in the variety of the roots. Suppose I say the word nedishta.
The network is not working, I guess. Sir, I think sir has some network issues. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you. Oh, stay connected.
So these things, and Vijay was speaking about gum to gata. These some linguists, some philologists think there was one old Indo-European root was there, that was gach root. From gach root that has come gachoti, and gum is the separate root, and the ma itself is retained in some of the Vedic words. Suppose gantobe, gantaba, gantaba, etc. So it is not becomes always goto. So there are there are some different structures for Vedic language and classical language. You can get it from any from the book of Elements of the Science of Language of written by I.J. Tarapureyala. You can get all these different structures of both the classical and the Vedic. Any more question or not?
No, we don't have any question now. So yes. We now have come to the end of today's session. I would like to thank Professor Harold Weise and Professor Taraknath Adhikari for sparing their valuable time for us. We are much obliged to the speakers for their august presence and informative lectures. We are also thankful to both the principals of ASSM and Panchakot Mahavidyalaya as well for their patronage, without which it was impossible to organize this event. Again, I would like to thank the team of ECS for giving us this platform. Lastly, I would like to thank the participants who spared their valuable time to attend the session. We appreciate you being here. Thanks again for joining us today. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
We also thank the college who gave us the chance to meet the East and the West, and for a difficult in this difficult time. And I will remind Professor Vijay, Harold Vijay, that I never told that it is a necessary evil. It has been told by Monier Williams, not by me. And for India, it has been told by Kashika and by Patanjali sometimes. That is, it is difficult to understand. But to me, it is like a sugar cane it is the outer side is very tough. But if you can squeeze it, if you have intelligence, if you have brain, then you can get the sweet juice of sugarcane. That I have concluded. Thank you very much, Cheryl. And when you get chance to come India, you are always welcome. Always welcome. Very good to see you after a long time, and you have enriched yourself in Indo-European style. So thank you very much, the college and also the Vijay, our good friend. And, do you have any meet with Rahul Peter Das? Rahul Peter Das? No.
I know of him, but I don't know him personally. He's more interested in modern Indology. In Halle, I have known Walter Sleje quite well, but he is retired now.
After Australia, the next time the World Conference will be in India. So try to come India, then we will meet and enjoy. You'll find the hospitality too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.